Hello guys, here's your Alex Weber with another interview. Actually, I'm bringing back my series Behind the Scenes, and today I'm joined by the esports psychologist, Weldon Green. You might know him from the First Blood podcast, from Richard Lewis, and also he's working with CPH Wolves. And well, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for contacting me. I think we first connected over Twitter, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Useful tool.
Yeah, that's really useful because we should mention that guy called Crumbs. He sent me a really cool question for you later on, right? So be prepared for that. You have to answer your own questions. If you want to check out, this guy is really good at seeing the show. Like, I probably just standing here, he will ask himself the questions because he's really good at it. So, how are you doing today?
Wow, it's my day. I guess it's been a mixture of a day.
Yeah.
So you might know that I'm a university teacher. So I actually had to lecture for 8 hours today, solid, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that was kind of intense. But then I'm taking this kettlebell class. I've been fooling around with kettlebells for 3 years or so, and I decided to finally try to figure out what's going on with those. I don't know if you've ever tried kettlebells, but
I've never heard of them before.
They're this round, cannonball kind of thing with a hoopy handle on the top.
Okay.
And you swing them around.
All right.
I could never figure out how to swing them correctly, but Russia and Finland have all the kettlebell world champions. That's what they do here. So I'm in Finland, so I took a kettlebell course, and yeah, today. So that was great. Yeah, I just came from the kettlebell course. I feel good.
Seems really cool.
Feel strong.
So let's get to the important questions, right?
Right.
How did you get to sports psychology? Because before you went to esports, you of course studied sports psychology.
That's a really interesting question, because a lot of people don't know that I actually studied sports psychology because I wanted to study exercise psychology. And the two disciplines are actually always pretty much connected wherever you go. So the degree I was studying was actually a Master's of Sport Science in Sport and Exercise Psychology. So I had never even really heard of sports psychology until I came to the university. And the reason I wanted to study exercise psychology was because America is very diabetic, and it's getting worse. So one of the good solutions for that is physical activity, of course. And so there's a lot of movement in the U.S. towards trying to figure out what it is about physical activity, that why we're not motivated to do it, and all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of really cool research on that. So I started studying that, and I discovered this thing called sports psychology while I was there, and it's really interesting. The idea of optimizing performance, at the highest levels, and really at all levels. Sports psychology is just as much about youth sport as it is elite sport, I think.
Well, you said you only got to sports psychology through university, but I'm actually read a few amount of articles about it. Did you actually got introduced by something, or did you inform yourself beforehand? Before you get to university in the first place. So did you have the interest before, or it was just oh damn, I think that's cool, I'm gonna make it?
Yeah, nobody's asked me that before, but essentially, looking back, I think that I have had an interest in psychology. When I was studying in my undergrad degree, which was actually in mathematics and in English literature, I took a psychology course. And so this was in 2002, and I didn't really care for it. It was just history. They were just studying Freud, and I don't really care that much about Freud because none of it really applies in the modern day. But then in 2009, when I was in Boston and I was working there, I was able to audit some psychology courses where my wife was attending school. and they have some world-class psychologists there. So I got to study under Steven Pinker, who just is a fascinating person and a great lecturer. He has a couple TED Talks you can check out if you're interested in him. And that made me re-interested in psychology as a science, because I was thinking like, oh, you know, I took this class in 2002 and it's all about Freud. So this is like, they're still on Freud. Like, aren't they moving on from there? But he was a modern psychologist, or he wasn't teaching Psych 101. He was teaching, you know, what we know nowadays. And that was really cool. And then I had to decide between like neuroscience and psychology, because on the one hand, you can study the biology of the brain, which is interesting and fascinating. And I actually studied that on my own. But then on the other hand, you have like how we as humans manifest reality in thought. And that I think is a lot more pertinent to our daily life. Like we can understand the neuroscience of the brain. We can change a few things, but nothing can change us the way that we can change ourselves. I mean, that's just really powerful, the way that we can just choose to do things and then do them. And so I think that psych has been more interesting for me than neuroscience.
That's actually cool. That's really cool. And it's admiring that you still studied neuroscience and neurobiology by yourself, because it's like so many things that you have to learn there.
It's really crucial, I think, for even for normal people who are studying psychology to understand a little bit about what is really happening behind the scenes that drives the behavior we see on the surface.
Is that something you use on your daily basis while you coach or are at the university?
I think it's pretty much ingrained in the way that I optimize performance, because choking is both a psychological phenomenon and also a neurological phenomenon. Like it happens because we mess with our motor neurons. And so because I understand what's happening on the motor level, in the neural level, and also what's happening on the psychological level, that helps me a lot more to like prevent choking from occurring.
All right, so now we know how you got to psychology, and the even more important question, how did you get to esports and esports psychology?
Well, I guess I've always been a gamer, so I've always been a competitive athlete, as well as
us, right?
Yeah, thank goodness. Although that's not, I mean, if you're new to gaming, that's awesome. Welcome. If you haven't been a gamer your whole life and you're just discovering this, like that's phenomenal. There's no like need to have any sort of pedigree in esports. I don't think it's necessary at all. But I was a very competitive athlete, and so I was always drawn to competitive games. You know, I played StarCraft 1 and Dota on the Warcraft 3 mod, Dota. I guess it was Defense of the Ancients All-Stars.
Yeah.
For a little while after it was the original. Like, I even forget the name of what the original mod was. But anyway. And then what really happened was I lost all of my free time to play video games. So I had a son, and all of a sudden, like, I was holding a baby here, and I couldn't really, you know, you can't like do so much mice and keyboard kind of stuff. And voice command wasn't here yet. Like the Kinect hadn't come out, or at least it wasn't that useful. So I was sitting there, you know, holding this baby that was crying for like 2 hours at night, thinking like, what am I going to do? I want to play StarCraft right now. And then I discovered Husky StarCraft. So that's when I saw esport for the first time. I was like, oh, look at all these people sitting there watching this live. That's amazing. And then I discovered CS. I think it was CS Source at the time. This was before Global Offensive came out, just a couple of years ago. And I played a lot of Counter-Strike in college, so that was really exciting. And then there was this really weird, colorful game, you know, happening in the background. I was like, what is that bizarre game they're always playing? Who's that fat guy with the beer barrels? And then, so that's how I discovered League of Legends.
Oh, well, that's a funny way to start with.
Yeah, I was just like, any game that has a fat guy with a beer barrel who's like half naked is just, I don't know what's going on there, but I have to find out. So I went and I played League, and it was fun, as you would expect. And I started immediately realizing that the principles of sports psychology, which it's actually better to call it performance psychology, I think, because it involves all human performance, operates under the same principles. So you can do sport psychology with test taking, with leadership, with speech, giving speeches in public, with sport, of course, with music, even with sex, actually. Sex is a performance, if you didn't know that. And so people who have problems with like sex can get therapeutic help, and a lot of it is actually sport psychology or performance psychology. You got to perform. So, yeah, I saw that it really applied to esport as well. I mean, it's no different than any other performance, really.
Actually, it's a sport, just like chess and every other thing sport. Card games would be same, actually. And well, alright, so when you start doing getting into esports, and you start a website called MindGamesGG, is that right?
Yeah. Well, it didn't start out that way. I think it was esportspsych.wordpress.com originally. And so and then that became Mind Games Consulting. Once I started a company, it became mindgamesconsulting.wordpress.com, and then, blah, 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 blah. And then now it's mindgames.gg, which is much cleaner. But I blogged for about 2 years before I was able to kind of start breaking into the scene, because there was a little bit of maturation that needed to happen so that people decided they wanted to get sports psychologists. At first, they just wanted coaches.
Yeah.
And then now they're getting sports psychs when they realize their coaches aren't enough yet to win. But I knew it was coming, because you have an organization whose prime objective is to win. They will do anything to win. And so that means, of course, looking at all the options for optimizing their performance. And there's nothing better than sports psychology after training. Of course, training then sports psych. So, although if you train incorrectly, it doesn't matter anyway, so you can waste all your time.
Right, so what was the idea behind all this project?
With
Mind Games.
With my original blog, Esports Psych, it was the first 2 months was desperation, because I had just graduated. I was unemployed, looking for a job, and I had a new baby to support. So it was just like, I got to do everything possible to look for money. And so I was applying to lots of jobs. I was, looking into teaching English in various places, and I was like writing this blog all the time and trying to like turn that into, a source of revenue for my family. And eventually, after a couple months, I got a job teaching at the university where I graduated from, and it was fantastic. So the blog kind of relaxed a little bit, and it turned into, for me, an exploration, how to take sports psych and put it into something like, put it into esport, right?
Yeah.
But what it has morphed into recently is to serve a need in the field for kind of mature, competitive knowledge. Because most esport athletes, most esport coaches, you don't grow up doing competitive sport. And so you don't learn in solo queue, you don't have a coach there with you like you do in football or soccer, for example. From the age of 5, you join a team, and there's always a coach there mentoring you, and they're telling you like, they're teaching you how to lose, they're teaching you how to win, they're teaching you how to be on time to practice, they're teaching you how to, integrate with your teammates and pass the ball, and all of these very essential competitive skills, which are not developed by solo queue, which are not developed by the kind of training we do in esport. And so once you get to the top, you're lacking in a lot of skills. And you can see this all the time, because esport teams choke like nothing else. And that's all a result of not really being competitively tried and tested year after year after year, and having a mentor there to like kind of help you over the humps. So I'm hoping that my articles and my podcasts can kind of like give people insight into the skills that they need to think about developing, and more importantly, the kind of coach they should look for to develop those skills.
Right, that's very interesting. And recently you just posted your new podcast about building and coaching a Rank 1 Challenger team, and many of you guys out there could know him from his one doping article, Doping Esports I think it was, which I think they both have their own thoughts and ways to express the goal. And I think it was I got to your blog actually not only by the First Blood podcast, but also from this doping article, which I think everybody that is listening here to this podcast right now should go check it out, because it's a really well written article and tells a lot about performance. We'll talk about that a bit later, but first of all, how do you prepare your content, like building and coaching a Rank 1 Challenger team? And and tell us about a bit about this podcast.
That's a really interesting question, because I hadn't really considered that. I do have actually an approach with this podcast that I don't think I've shared with anybody, but the idea is to look at the developmental path of the esport athletic career. So there's a whole bunch of people out there aspiring to be esport athletes, and they don't know how to do it. Like, the idea is you just train until you're at the top of solo queue, and then you get noticed magically somehow, and then you randomly get an opportunity, and then you jump on it, which is, of course, kind of how it works right now. But that's not how the industry needs to work, and that's not how it's going to work going forward. There are now talent scouts in the amateur scene, and they work really hard at like finding people and bringing them into feed teams. And all you have to do is look at Coast in the NALCS. They just bought out a challenger team, Final Five, and moved some people onto their main roster that, like the first guest on my podcast, Nicole Manning, she had scouted those people and put together this team, you know, and then now she's probably going to do another one, or at least her company might. So this is like something that companies are doing. They're positioning themselves in the amateur scene. They're scouting out talent. They're developing talent by putting them with a good coach. And then they sell the team to an NA team who's looking for good players, you know, to like move up in the rankings. Because the NA teams don't have time to go around and look, or like the LCS teams, the premier teams, they don't have time to go look around for talent and then breed them up on their own anymore. That's not how it's going to work. So I'm trying to interview people mostly in the challenger scene, pro coaches, pro players, and try to teach aspiring athletes like all the various paths that there are to get to that elusive esport athletic career. And along the way, you'll discover a lot more possible jobs in esports. So, for example, in my last podcast, I interviewed a manager for Enemy Esport who I actually got to work with last December. I got to consult with their team. And that was Angel Vigil, by the way. And so I just, messaged him on Skype. I said, hey, can I interview you? I think that people would learn a lot from what you have to say about like how to break into the challenger scene as a coach or as a player. And so he kind of delivered on that. And I also interviewed Nicole Manning, who's another coach or team manager, team recruiter, maybe talent scout in the challenger scene. And yeah, that's kind of my aim with that podcast. Of course, I will interview pro players, especially the ones that I have access to, like the Copenhagen Wolves and some others. But mostly I'm going to talk to them about their experience and how they developed and how they trained. So
it's very, very interesting. I'll put a link in the description for you guys so you can check it out. So
thanks.
Before we go to the next topic, that would be esports coaching in general, I want to go back to the doping article I mentioned, and actually it's a good transition, by the way. And how important is nutrition and workouts and physical exercise for athletes in the esports scene?
That's a really interesting question, because in kind of a funny way, I have a couple different answers for this question. So people ask me, are you a well-being coach? Kind of, because like I'm a psychologist, or I'm not a psychologist as licensed. I'm a sports psychologist, which is very different, or sports psychological skills trainer. So I cannot do therapeutic, like clinical psychology. And so if I run into that in a team, like I have to pass it off to a professional. But anyway, people ask me, are you a well-being coach? And I have to kind of explain that if you look at elite athletes, if you look at, like, say, people are all on this circle here, right? And you have down here all the normal, happy people who have jobs and like go home to their families at night, whatever, work, balanced lives, okay? Hobbies, whatever. Then you go around the edge, and up here you get elite athletes who like have to spend their life devoted to their sport. Even when they're not training, they're thinking about it. They're living their sport. And you really have to do that if you want to be a champion, right? We know this from looking at Michael Jordan and LeBron James and all these other champions. But like 1 inch away from the elite athletes here on the other side of normal people, that's the crazy people. So like you have like elite athletes and crazy people are basically not that different from each other. They both live incredibly unbalanced, unhealthy lives. And if I coached all of my elite athletes to be very well balanced and happy, they would probably not be elite athletes anymore, because they wouldn't have that drive that makes them sacrifice for this thing that they want above other things. They wouldn't sacrifice their temporary happiness for some future aspirational gain, because that's not like what a well-balanced person does. So in the same way, I can't say that like getting balanced nutrition and getting balanced sleep makes you a better esport athlete, because it could be that you are like doing 12-hour marathon training sessions and like not eating very well in order to develop the skills that you need to be at the elite level. And I can't really say that's good or bad. There are people that can get to that elite level without doing that, certainly. They can sleep well, live a balanced life, they can focus, and they can learn with the limited time that they have. And I would like to increase the number of people who can do that. So that's why on my website I try to teach optimization, like how to make the most out of your training time so that you can get good nutrition, good sleep. And the only thing I will say, though, is exercise is definitely a yes. So like nutrition, I think is borderline. I think that it's very clear that sugar causes decision-making problems. If you want to be any sort of strategic like mastermind, or if you want to do any sort of like quick order thinking, or you want to learn, then I would avoid sugar at all costs in your training regime. I think that you should like abstain from it completely actually in life, but I can't live like that. I eat chocolate too often, so I can't. I mean, like I'll give you advice all day long, but I certainly can't live that way. But then again, I'm not an elite athlete, so whatever. When I was a competitive a competitive swimmer, I did not eat sugar or drink pop, because it affects your muscles, it affects your brain. So that's there for you. But okay, exercise, yeah, crucial. It's been proven through CAT scans that exercise like improves decision making, improves executive functioning, improves learning, causes brain growth in all sorts of different areas. They don't know why, maybe because of blood flow or whatever. But yeah, you have to be doing regular physical activity. Now that doesn't mean exercise, because they're two different things. Physical activity and exercise. Exercise is like scheduled effort, like in a gym, or like running, or like some sort of like aerobic kind of thing. Physical activity is just movement. That's all you really need. Like a couple minutes a day, 15, 30, I think 30 minutes a day is the current recommendation. But you can do it in like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Walking is fantastic for the brain and for the body. You don't need to go like schedule time, get to the gym, have a membership, lift weights. You don't need to do that. You just need to be active and walking around like our human body was meant to do. And you will get all the benefits, the health benefits, the mental benefits of vigorous exercise just with that physical activity. So next time you like have a break between games, like go walk to the store, buy some orange juice, walk back. Perfect. You're better mentally prepared for your next game, plus you got your physical activity, plus you got some orange juice to boost your immune system. So you've got nutrition, exercise, prep.
More. Yeah. Wow, that's actually pretty interesting, because I actually tested it out, taking sugar out of my nutrition while I prepared for my final exams. Until 3 weeks before the exams, I could live without chocolate. Then it got worse and worse and worse and worse. but well, as you recommended, I actually test it out because it's really it worked better. So wow, I'm actually amazed about this. It's really interesting. Let's get back to the main topic of the interview, and it's actually esports coaching. Who have expected this? And Weldon, what do you do for the Copenhagen Wolves, and how was your experience so far?
My experience has been wonderful. The Copenhagen Wolves is a fantastic organization. They love their players. They trust their players. They're really behind them. Like when they have low-performing players, at points they don't just go with the wind and like try to cut them and replace them. Like they really give them a shot. And even when things are dire and like sponsors might be calling for certain moves within the team, like they try to like push them. And so I think that is one of the things that drew me to that organization was the fact that I saw this roster consistently, through time, and I saw the kind of like, it really looked like their CEO or whoever was making the decisions at that time was friends with these people, and that they were like a cohort, and that draws me in because I know the power of group dynamics. I know the power of friendship, as it were, if it's like correctly directed.
Man. That's cheesy.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work really very well. I mean, you just have to look at TSM for that. I mean, Reginald is able to like swap out players and cause immediate improvement due to his group environment. So, yes, friendship does not correlate at all with winning, but it's a very powerful mechanism for motivation if you have a sports psychologist on your team to like manipulate it like a little, puppet master behind the scenes. So, what do I do with the Copenhagen Wolves? I do a workshop every 3 weeks, and then I do a follow-up session one-on-one with each player every 3 weeks on a 3-week cycle. And through the workshop, I deliver lots of information and a few group activities like training. And then in the one-on-ones, I kind of check in with them on how they're doing motivation-wise, what their holdups are, and what any issues are, like teammate issues, and kind of uncover those. And then we do some specific training on mindfulness currently. Like I have a progressive path from 0 to mental toughness. So when I come into a team, I analyze like where they are at the current stage, and then we go from wherever they are individually towards mental toughness. And right now we're doing mindfulness, which is essentially the anti-choking training that I am a huge fan of personally. Not every sports psychologist uses this. A lot of them do psychological skills training, which is things like imagery, emotional control, pre-performance routines, self-talk. I'm a huge fan of mindfulness. I think it's really effective, and I think it's really easy to grasp, but it takes a lot longer to do so. So it's like an extended training. We're going to be doing this for, I think, 3 or 4 months. Like the whole rest of this split, the whole rest of next split, we'll be doing mindfulness all the time. And then by the World Championships, the Copenhagen Wolves will be Zen master Buddhists. They'll just like they'll be hovering like on their chairs.
First they have to prove that they will be at the World Championships.
Oh no, I don't mean that they're going to be at the World Championships. I mean when we arrive at the point where we need to qualify for the World Championships. But yes, they're going to get first place in the World Championships.
All right, I'm excited to see you because
right.
It's interesting because since you joined them, was sometime around spring split, right?
It was actually December or January. It was December? Yeah, it was 3 weeks before the spring split started.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you saw in the first 5 weeks such an evolution from the team environment, the team play, and of course the individual play. And what do you think you as a psychologist could affect that in a certain aspect?
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I think 99.9% of it was their coach. Karl, dentist, is incredible. He really believes in his athletes, and he's pretty knowledgeable about the game, but I think his biggest asset is that he loves his team, and he tries to they trust him. They know that he has their back, and he's trying to like coordinate team effort and kind of just direct that and be the person who's responsible for the lapses. So when you're an athlete and you like screw up and like somebody else is above you to take responsibility, that's very freeing. And just the fact that they have that pressure release, you know, and it can be like it's the coach's fault a little bit, he takes the blame and then lets them train. That's a really powerful psychological tool. So I mean, I meet with them once every 3 weeks as a group and once every 3 weeks one-on-one. And yes, I'm helping smooth out some issues, but sports psychological training, like when it's delivered this infrequently, is a long-term bet. So the improvement that they've had so far has been absolutely because of their coach pickup. It was just a really great find. And I think that like I've worked with Karl and I try to give him advice and like, you know, listen to what he's talking about and kind of consider that and help him out where I can. So that's actually my ideal scenario. Like I think the coach of a team is in the perfect position to be the one delivering sports psychological principles. It should be the coach. The problem is that like not all coaches have the free time to go and study sports psychology for 2 years and get a master's in it, right? So I'm trying to give him the tools as fast as I can and help him through that so that he can kind of do the job even better.
Oh, that's interesting. And then a shout out to our lovely dentist. And what are your thoughts on the actual situation of coaching in esports?
It's in its infancy, and that's being polite, because I think that there are a few good coaches and the rest are really insecure and they're not developing because they don't know how. And this isn't their fault. So Riot said, we want coaches. They're going to pay for it. They're going to start this from the top down. Like they're going to force the issue. Instead of it being organic, like coaches get picked up by teams when they need them, they're just going to make every single team get a coach. So this is great because it's really going to skyrocket the scene forward. But of course, that doesn't mean that every coach pickup is going to be useful at all. And there are coaches that are kind of like approaching the full package. And if you want to look at coaching done well, all we have to do is kind of like look at Korea. So I used to live in Japan. I used to coach in Japan. And I've traveled to Korea, and the cultures are very similar in terms of the age, ranking. In terms of the language, they even have cognates between the languages. Like when I was there, I could like understand some of the sentences because they have so many similar words in them. So when I saw esport like in Korea kind of doing its thing, I immediately saw the same sporting structure that I see in Japan, which is that you have a team composed of younger individuals and older individuals, and the older individuals mentor the younger individuals. And in every sector of Japanese society and Korean society, there's a career path. They do not like dead ends. They like you to pick something you're going to do young, and you do that your whole life, and you constantly progress until you reach like some sort of median level or in your 40s where you're kind of like, you'll get stuck there unless you're exceptional, then you'll keep going. And by exceptional, they mean hard worker, not smart, right? So in esport, they immediately develop the same thing because this is how they culturally express their work ethic, right? So they have older players mentoring the younger players. Then the younger players grow up and the older players move into like mentoring roles or coaching roles. They do positional coaching, or they just work in the house as an assistant coach. And then they get experience mentoring. And then the main coaches mentor the assistant coaches, and the assistant coaches mentor the older players, and the older players mentor the younger players. Lots of like really good experience that they learn from that, and then they move up and they're the head coach, and then the team management like starts involving them in team decisions and showing them how the team is structured and mentoring them in that. Meanwhile, they mentor the assistant coaches. So like this is how you build coaching expertise. They don't deal with just strategy, and that is why Korea can produce championship athletes over and over and over again. They don't care about losing their whole roster to China because they'll just make new ones, because this is what they're exceptional at, and they're good at breeding competitors who will train hard enough to get the skill that they need. Okay. Now, in the West, we don't operate in this model. we have an exceptionalism model, not an age model. So we need people who are amazing, and we reward them for it. And we're never going to be career. We're never going to like shift to this age thing. So the way we do it in the West is we build career networks. Like if you look at every single other sport, you have a circuit essentially of professional coaches who all get together once a year at a conference, and they exchange ideas and exchange expertise, and they do talks to each other, and they have a get together, you know. And these are called professional development networks or professional support networks, and you just kind of learn on the job from other people who are doing it well. And this is actually my end goal with mindgames.gg. So eventually I'm going to be successful at this enough that I can start organizing live events where we will have coaches from as many people who can come as can afford it, essentially. If you can come, then you can get a ticket. They're not going to be that expensive. And we will have sports psychologists teaching there. We'll have other successful coaches from esport coming and talking about what we know, one or two things they do, like tips and tactics and training. And it'll just be like a 2-day development conference. And it'll start forming this professional support network, which is where expertise grows in the West. And I think that like as esport gets younger and younger, we have amateur teams, then we'll start having university teams, then we have youth teams. Those ranks, like you need coaches at all of these levels, and those people will get experience coaching. I'm already volunteering for a network of like gold and silver level teams, and even sometimes some platinum teams that they just like have volunteer coaches. And the coaches are getting experience, and then they're going to move up and coach better teams, and they're going to get more experience there, and then to the amateur teams, and then to the pro teams. So we will get there with coaching talent, but right now it's like too focused on what you bring to the team skill-wise, like mental thinking-wise, like strategy and game, and not enough focused on what coaches in traditional sports do, which is like manage player motivation, manage player effort, manage player conflicts, teach players how to be competitors, and then allow the players to train in this wonderful environment in order to develop the skills that they need.
That's a good approach, and I'm stoked to see it happen, actually. So when you're starting this, hit me up. I'll be there. And of course, when you talk about your experiences and that there's still a lot of work to do, why would you still recommend a team to get a sports psychologist to their coaching staff?
Well, you don't need to necessarily bring one on like to your coaching staff. You can simply have one consult with you, like a business-to-business transaction. So you just like buy training from them, and that way you don't have to like add them as a staff member to your organization or anything. And it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. You can try them out. So there's no harm in just trying it out and seeing how it works. And you can, just like every coach is different, every sports psych is different. So it doesn't hurt at all to just, contact one. And if you need numbers, I have like 4 people who are in line that want to work with esport teams. So you just contact one, you say, hey, can we have a couple weeks of training? And they say yes, and you train with them a couple weeks and see how you like it. And you only benefit from it. You don't really lose, and then you can continue or not. Why do you get a sports psych? Primarily to train your coach in the same thing that the sports psych is doing. So I would say like make sure you buy coach training in whatever package you arrange. Like make sure that they meet one-on-one with all of your coaches, or maybe one-on group with all of your coaches, or one-on-one with your main coach, and just talk to them about like how to interact with players, how to give feedback to players, and all these social and emotional skills. And then the other reason that you get them is to set up consistent, productive routines in the team. So let's say you're like, we want to set up a pre-performance routine before we go into a competitive match, and we don't know what is important to do before a performance. We don't know what's bad to do before performance, what's good, what's going to hurt us. I do. I've read all of the research on it, so I can tell you exactly what you need to do before performance to be in the right mindset to play. So you can bring one on to design with you a pre-performance routine. You can bring one on to set up like to try to help players who have anxiety in performance. You can bring them on to take exceptional players you have and make them even better. Like let's say you have a superstar who's just rock solid. A sports psych working with them will have more of an impact actually probably than working with somebody who's already mentally weak, because you can augment mental toughness. You can take somebody who's mentally tough, show them what they're doing right, show them what they're doing that's useless, and they cut out all the useless junk and they save a ton of time and they get way better, way faster. So.
All right, I will try to apply that. And when I talk to esports coach or any esports related people in my next interviews maybe. All right, so what would you recommend for starting coaches actually, and what they should focus on learning and apply to their coaching?
That's a really good question. I do have one activity I think you should start with, and I think that you should write a coaching philosophy, because essentially the best thing that you can do as a coach is take a long-term view towards your development. You can say, I want every single thing that I do to make me a better coach, because that is how the best coaches in the world got where they are. They analyzed what they were doing and they improved it over and over again. They learned from all their encounters. So look at your history in sport. Look at any sort of coaching or mentoring experience you've ever had, whether it's receiving coaching and mentoring or giving coaching and mentoring, and then write a coaching philosophy. What that is, it's 2 paragraphs, okay? The first paragraph is kind of about your philosophy of human learning. How is it that an esport athlete translates training into expertise? How does a human being learn a new motor movement and get so good at it that they're better at somebody else? Like, how does that happen? Does it happen through repetition? Does it happen through a special kind of training? Does it happen through thinking while you train? Like, you have a belief. Write down what that belief is. And if it might take you a few weeks to figure out, like when I wrote my coaching philosophy and my teaching philosophy, it took me about 4 weeks to kind of like work through it, talk to people, write something, have somebody look at it, talk about it some more, till I got a really firm, solid philosophy. So the first paragraph, human learning. How does it happen in the brain? And how do you translate what you do into learning? Second one should be, how are people motivated? And how do you interact with people? So like, what is it that motivates people, in your opinion, as a coach? What is your focus? What is your answer in a situation when an athlete says, I'm just not motivated to train? Where do you start with that? So talk about what's your belief about human motivation, and look at your own experience to figure that out. You have your own beliefs, put them on paper. Same with human interaction. You say your athlete comes to you and says, like, I hate this guy, I can't work with him. What does that mean to you? Like, write it down. So now you have your coaching philosophy. It's 2 paragraphs. Now you have something to base your decisions off of. So when an athlete comes to you and says, like, I have this problem, you stop and you think, okay, based on my philosophy of like long-term development, like what is the thing that I would recommend for them, over the next few weeks to like do to repair this problem? How do I understand it? And then you can give good advice, because all of your advice is based on your philosophy, your core beliefs about how this works. And when you find it to be wrong or slightly off, you adjust them. So then like a year down the road, you're going to have a different coaching philosophy, and it's going to be based on the experiences you had, right? So you're going to be an even better coach than you were a year before. And this is how you build up your expertise so you are invaluable. Like the top coaches in the NCAA, basketball, the top coaches in the NFL and in the NBA, they're absolutely indispensable. You cannot replace them, because they have knowledge built up from experience that is completely irreplaceable. Like they've collected it and they've refined their understanding of the human psyche to such a degree that they can take any group of people, form them into a cohesive unit, and cause performance to happen. So that's the skill you're trying to develop. And so you need to be intentional about it. You need to read and study and everything, but it all comes back to this coaching philosophy that you have that is going to like develop. So the first thing you should do is get it down on paper.
All right, that's something actually I never thought about it, and it's pretty deep in a sense and very, very understandable. And I saw you are starting a Kickstarter. Well, you started a while ago. It's still 3 days to go, and it's about a book on esports psychology. Do you want to tell us something about it?
Yeah, I can tell you about it. I did this to try to figure out Kickstarter because I have a real Kickstarter that I want to do soon. And this one is, I was like, I'll just throw it out there. And if people funded this book, I'll write it. It's great because I've already written about half of it. So I just need, I need essentially 2 months of labor to finish the rest of the book. So if people want it, great. If they don't want it, no harm done because it's Kickstarter. It's awesome. You can just put stuff on there when you have an idea. If people want it, they'll pay you to do it. And if they don't want it, then they don't pay to do it and you don't have to do it. So check it out if you're really interested. Kickstarter it. And if it doesn't happen, don't fear because all of this information is going onto my site. Like I can put it in ebook form and you'll get it that way. Or you can simply just like sign up for my mailing list and read my blog consistently and you'll get all this information all the time. Now, I have a very different thing on my blog. Kickstarter is, the thing is ending at the same time I'm actually ending this other offer, which is a little bit more important. Like, let's say you're aspiring to be an esport athlete. You don't want to Kickstarter this book because it's not going to get you there. If you're aspiring to be an esport athlete, or even if you want to like do one-on-one coach training or this kind of like question and answer video training, then you have to check out the offer that's on my blog because I'm trying to find a way to train more people, like individuals. Right now, I only train professional teams. I train an EU LCS team, an NA LCS team, and the Robert Morris University squad as well. So, like, I just don't have time with a full-time job and all this training to like fit in individual training. But there's a lot of people that want it. And I know that because I get emails constantly all the day, every day, and I'm on Skype calls all the time with like people I just want to help, right? I just want to talk to them, and they like, hey, I have a question, so I just call them for an hour. But I have 2 kids, so that's not tenable. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a way to compress this into video training and forum training, and finding ways of doing it en masse with groups, like live Q&A with groups that is doable. So I'm launching on my site, not on Kickstarter, but on my site, I'm launching a membership portal that you can get into the back end, into the Mind Games athlete group. And in there you'll get, we're going to start it actually in April. So there's going to be a weekly video training that comes out, along with a live Q&A for the people who are in the membership. So like we'll do a live Q&A, you'll supply questions all week, and then I'll answer them all live, and then we'll talk about them with whoever can show up. But it's all recorded, of course, so you can catch it later if you miss it. And then we're going to do, we'll have a private group where you can just type quick questions. I can answer them by text, and then we'll have a portfolio that you build throughout the training. Now, because I'm testing this out, because I haven't done it before, I have no idea what's going on, this first launch that I'm doing is like a special deal, because I want to reward the people who take a risk with me. So it's a lifetime membership forever. Everything I ever do with this portal will be free for them, for those of you who join up, permanently. So I plan to add content over the next many years, classes and courses and all sorts of like amazing content and training, and all of that is just going to increase the value of what's happening in this membership. And so the value will go up, but of course you've paid once forever. So that's that. And I'm going to reopen it later at the full price, of course, and you'll see those on the offer page, and you can decide whether it's right for you. I mean, I'm not trying to force anybody to do this, because if you don't do it, then I can work more focused with the people who did sign up. So it's great, but it's also great if more people sign up, that everybody that wants it, gets in. So that is probably more important for you than the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter campaign looks like it's not going to happen at all, and I'm not worried about that because this is all free content anyway, and I was even going to give the book away for free, I think, pretty soon, like next fall. So you're going to get it all through the blog anyway. And I'm going to be Kickstartering something else much bigger soon that is actually like really valuable, I think, for esport coaches. So that'll be something that's coming, and I'll definitely like announce it and market it and do social media and stuff with that. So you can keep an eye out for that if you want, or you can just go join my mailing list, and then you'll find out about it.
All right, so you guys should check out mindgames.gg to see the offers. When is this lifetime offer ending?
Friday.
So
March. I should probably say the date because I don't know when this is going live, but it's March 27th.
Yeah, 27th, and I hope to get this interview out on Wednesday. So yeah.
So it's March 27th.
So March
by
25th.
before midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope that you still have time to check it out. If not, I'm so sorry about this. I'm so sorry, but you still can check it out and wait for other offers. So anyways, there were a few Twitter questions, my dear Weldon, and
Okay.
2 of them were from you. But still, I have to question yourself. Why are you so damn handsome?
I work out. What was that? LMFAO song.
All right.
LFMAO. Yeah.
You can sing for us if you want to.
I actually don't remember the words. I haven't seen it recently enough.
Sexy and then no.
Oh yeah. Sexy. I know it. I work out.
All right, we got this. How can
I'm sexy because my wife thinks I'm sexy. So that's all a guy needs.
That's motivation right there. How can we plan for mental warfare against our new NA Overlords? You post this right after the TSM IM win, I think.
Yeah, how can you plan for mental warfare against TSM? That's hard because they have Lokodoko. Now, Lokodoko...
This is getting serious right here.
Yeah. They have... well, first of all, I want to say they have a Korean coach, but, it's obviously... That's not what makes him special. What makes him special is that he understands how to motivate, cultivate, protect, and handle the mindset of his players, right? So I see this without ever talking with him, without ever knowing him, without ever looking behind the scenes of his coaching. I see this just from the way that the athletes talk to each other and the things that they say. I hear his voice coming out through them and through his mentorship. And I see him around the random occasional stream here and there. The things that he says line up with what sports psychology has proven work. So he's one of these people I'm talking about, like when I was talking about the elite and NCAA coaches that develop their expertise. He is developing this expertise, this ability to handle, motivate, and cultivate skill in people that is starting to become invaluable. And so that's the biggest threat that TSM is bringing to the table every week. And there's only a few coaches in NA that are going to be able to compete with him. For example, Skara is one, and I don't know who else. I think that C9 has one of the best managers ever in League of Legends history. As far as the North American and EU scenes go, I don't know much about Korea other than that I watch it, and of course China is a mystery to me as far as management goes. But I don't know anything about Charlie, C9's coach, or what he does for the team. So I can't really speak to that. But if I were to look at their slumps, I would say that is what I expect of a team that has a very good training environment, that is designed training environment, but they don't necessarily have amazing mentorship in the house to deal with the issues short term. So that to me is a sign that they should get somebody in there to train Charlie, to train their mentoring players, to train their coaches, whatever, so that they can shorten their slumps. But I'm confident C9 will always break out of their slumps because they have Jack, who's shown to know what to do for managing teams. He keeps his players on. He gives them trust and autonomy, which are very key essential elements for motivation. You have to have autonomy. You have to have empowerment and trust in order to breed individual intrinsic inside motivation. And then he also does things he moved the team out of LA to get them from being distracted, to get them focused. That was just an incredible decision. It really paid off, especially now that they're face-to-face talking time on the whole transit down and stuff like that, when they're not on their cell phones. But anyway, yeah, back to TSM. How are you going to compete with your NA Overlords? How are you going to choke them? I think that you have to rely that they're going to be mentally strong because of Lokodoko, and you have to attack their weak points, I would say. Look at what has historically made them choke, and then you have to out-mentally tough them. So you have to count on the fact that they're not going to get too flustered they have this inevitability play. So they're like, we're going to inevitably win this game if we just stay, solid and take the risks we need to take, and just believe in that. So, gosh, what would I recommend strategically? Okay, mental warfare side, obviously you attack Dyrus and you attack Wild Turtle, because if you put Wild Turtle behind, then he's a risky player. And he loves taking risks, and he's very, in this environment where like that's rewarded, and he's always going to take the risk. And if he's behind, then his risk will be your reward, because he'll put himself in a riskier situation, and then you can punish him. So if you put him behind, then I know that he's always going to behave that way, because he's really good at being in the zone. He doesn't choke that much, but his in the zone is like flashing forward for the kill, right? So that's not a very good in the zone kind of reaction. So put him behind and he'll die when he does that. And then Dyrus is like, if you let him get ahead and get mentally strong on the game, like he's just going to win it for them. So if you put him on tilt, that's like your best bet, because then, he's more liable to just like hang with the team and not take that risk. Like he's just plays less risky when he's on. When I don't want to say on tilt, because I still see him make the fearless play, which is a big sign of being not choking, right? So he's not really like choking by the clinical definition of choking, but he is playing more safe. He's playing less risky, and that's because, he stuck out his hand a bunch and it got slapped. So he's like, oh, I gotta stop sticking my hand out, right? And you don't really have any other chance to beat them. So yeah, that's your best bet. And then of course they just got beat, didn't they? By, who was it, Gravity? Who beat them?
I just say Urgod.
Yeah.
Urgod mid.
So that's the other thing. You can beat Bjergsen if you have a god-like mid player, but that's not liable to happen.
I think that's way more the key to win against TSM than overwhelming their strength, because the only and one true carry for TSM is still Bjergsen.
Yeah, he's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and well, don't let leak too much information about TSM. If not, Loco and Reggie will kill me and ban me from their social media. So sorry for that. I don't know this guy who I'm interviewing here. He just say some random stuff. I don't know where he did get this, but I think it was from YouTube, from your games. And I'm sorry, but a prophet wrote me a really, really interesting question. So shout out to Crumbs.
Is this where you have the like music effect, like la?
Yeah, I should put that in.
You should add that in post production.
Okay, guys.
Right when I just did that, right here.
Yeah.
Not the first time, the second time.
Also the second time, just for more epicness here. So alright, so the Crumbs asked me why League being such a psychological activity, it seems that the large majority of teams fail to complete accept sport psychologists as a full-time position within their team. And what will take for that to happen?
So sports psychology is important, probably more important than anything else. And so why don't more teams have sports psychologists as full-timers in their orgs? Probably comes down to money, first and foremost. So there's a lot of sports psychologists out there. And if you just go looking for a professional sports psych, and then you find them, and then you ask their rates, it's going to be what a sports team could afford. And honestly, esports teams are soon able to afford this, but they're not used to paying that for coaching, right? So a good example of this is Fnatic. They hit the off season and needed a coach. So they advertised for a coach. And the way that they wrote their advertisement was for a professional coach. I mean, we're talking like someone like me. So they were asking for experience coaching. So I have, over 6 years of competitive swim coaching experience at the Olympic level. They were asking for somebody, you know, who knows sports psychological principles. I have a master's degree in it. They were asking for somebody who, you know, could manage players and lead the team and do all of these things, right? They were asking for a professional sport coach. But my impression was that they would not be willing to top my just like university teacher salary. Like they wouldn't be willing to go like 60,000 euros a year and pay moving costs for my family to move to Berlin and cover all my medical and all that stuff. So, and I probably wouldn't go there for less than 80 because it's a big risk compared to like my university degree, which has, of course, I get amazing medical benefits. I get union benefits. I get retirement. So esport organizations are just not used to paying for professional quality coaching. So when they go to a sports psych and they say, how much do you cost? And they get the bill, they're like, dear God, like this is actual real training, you know, real professional fees. So that doesn't mean that you can't get sports psych coaching. It just means you're not trying hard enough. You have to look at the people who are just coming onto the scene. One good example is ENISP, the European Network of Young Sports Psychological Professionals. They have a Facebook group, for crying out loud. Young sports psychological professionals, right? So they're hurting for jobs. They want to break into new scenes. They want to like find markets. They'll be willing to do work for a little bit less in order to get foundations, you know? And I mean, that's the way that I started in esport, was as a young professional, charging way less than the professionals actually charge. So go and find those, or contact me. I have students, like I supervise, I'm supervising one master's research in esport, and I have tons of students who are interested in working with teams, doing their master's degree. This is how SK got their sports psych. They did a piece of research with, I can't believe his name, Lucas Schenke, who is their sports psych trainer, and that turned into like then, you know, future work. So I think the other thing is esport teams aren't hungry enough for the win. Like they say, oh, we want to win, but most of them just settle for like, yes, we're making a living doing our dream. We're in the LCS. We'll take second place. We'll take third place. We'll take, they're the only thing we want. They want to not lose. That's the only thing they want. So.
All right. So
by the time that they're like losing and they're getting relegated, they're like, that won't help us anymore. It's too late. Yeah, it is too late. You're right. So it won't help you anymore if you're already getting relegated to hire a sports psych. You have to be thinking like, we want to win the world championships. And there's very few teams that are thinking that way right now. They're saying it, of course. Everybody's saying it, but like nobody actually believes it. Like everybody's just happy, settling for whatever they're settling for. Which those people will quickly get eaten up because there are thousands of aspiring athletes who are going to come on hungry to do more than just settle. So if you're a coach or a manager or an owner who's not willing to go full Monty towards winning in the professional leagues, like you're gonna get eaten up by people who are coming into the scene and are used to that level of, like people like Reginald, you know? Mm. Like he's just merciless. He's like, if you're not performing, I'm cutting you. I'm replacing you with somebody good and we're going to win. And that's just that. And there's going to be more and more managers like him who have business acumen, who have a hunger for nothing but victory, and who will accept nothing less. Doesn't matter if you're their friend or not. And so that's like the way that esports is going because it's a professional sport now. And that's the way that all professional sports are at the moment, global ones at least.
All right. So thanks first of all for the interview, because we're going now to the last and fun section of the interview where I will ask you a few questions that you should answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. And
okay.
I want also to say sorry because my internet's like dying right now, and the quality from Weldon has been lacking of quality. Is I think he's in Minecraft right now, but I hope you can still hear him because I don't have a clue what's going on, and I think my internet is just like trolling me. So I'm very sorry for this, but I think you still could still understand him well. If not, I am gonna write everything down, and you will be able to read. So, well, can you say something? So, maybe just in case I probably start my internet new
Test.
tests.
Test.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize. It could be my internet as well. I mean, I don't have the most reliable stuff here, so I'm sorry for that, everybody.
All right.
Don't climb over Alex.
Okay, so let's get into the fun facts. What's your favorite book?
Lois McMaster Bejolds, like core book, whatever it's called. I don't remember the name even anymore. But the author is Lois McMaster Bejold. She writes science fiction like epics, and she writes this series. The main protagonist is named Miles, and he's like a short little guy who wants to prove himself to the world. It's pretty awesome. Deals with a lot of gender issues. Gender issues are hot right now in esports. She has books all about gender issues. So, I mean, in space with lasers. So
that seems pretty cool. So, favorite game?
Magic the Gathering.
Nice. Favorite band?
Favorite band, St. Olaf Band. That's the college I went to that I graduated from. They have an awesome band.
All right. Favorite movie or TV series?
Matrix is my favorite movie, and my favorite TV series is the Desperate Housewives original series, like season 1, season 2.
All right. So, Weldon.
No, come on, nothing. Those of you who've watched season 1 of Desperate Housewives when it was coming out, just like raise your hands. I mean, that was like some really crazy stuff. I mean, okay, Breaking Bad, like that's all the new hot thing, right? But this is like the original Breaking Bad, but with women murdering people, guys.
Okay, that seems like really interesting stuff going on there. So, are they also cooking meth in the basement?
No.
Okay.
But there was a pharmacist. Well, I'm not going to, no spoilers.
So go check it out, guys. So, thanks for taking the time to do the interview, and all the great answers as well. Do you have any shoutouts left to do?
Shout out to my website, mindgames.gg. Check out the offer before Friday. If you miss it, don't worry. I'm never doing this offer ever again. This is the one-time thing. In order to protect the people who do buy it and who invest in me, and then, of course, because I'm never going to be launching for the first time again, like I'm going to launching with much more value in the future. So I will reopen the membership section in a few weeks once I get started with this group and stuff like that. So you'll have an opportunity to get in and get training and get one-on-one kind of stuff, but it'll be a little bit more expensive. That's all.
All right. So guys, be sure to check out the description below. Check out Weldon on Twitter at mindgamesweldon. Of course, mindgames.gg, and of course all his social media. If you liked the video, the interview, be sure to subscribe and give a like and share it with your friends, esports colleagues, who the hell you want. Be sure to spread the word.
Your parents.
Parents, of course, their parents. And also, bye-bye, guys. We see us on the next time. First with pictures, we share arts.